Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Insightful Conversations with Krishna Radha. Today, the guest on our show is Devakant. I'm extremely excited to talk to Devakant. Devakant was born in US. He lived in a very idyllic town in the southern California. He describes it as a perfect childhood with the Disneyland trips, loving parents. The surroundings were idyllic, but Devakant was intense, rebellious in nature, and that, as most of the other sannyasins we have spoken to, is what gets them to the exploration and searching part, and then to Osho. So, without going further too much into what his story is, I'm just going to show you the book that I read. And I'm absolutely in love with this book because this book had so many answers to the questions I had always thought in my head. So, I highly recommend if you want to know more in detail about his journey right from the beginning. So, without any further delay, let's welcome Devakant. Hello,
Hi,
Devakant.
Krishna Radha. Nice to see you. Thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
So, my first question,
Yeah,
Devakant. You are a man of many talents, many skills. You are a flute player, an artist, sculptor, painter, carpenter. Which is the closest to your heart?
it's playing the flute. The way I think of myself is I'm a musician. Yeah. So my intent was always to compose beautiful music that helps people to find their inner being, that connects them with the greater force of the universe. And I found, after studying many instruments, that the flute was the one that was most like the sound that I hear in my soul. And particularly the Indian bamboo flute touches me the most deeply.
Yeah, I loved when I read about that you played with Hari Prasad Chaurasia. For the viewers, he's one of
Hmm.
the finest flute players I've heard. I have never been in his live concerts, but I've heard him play on the recordings, and it's amazing. I almost related with you when you said that it's like almost Krishna playing there. And I used to, when as a child, I
Mm.
used to imagine I used to have these imaginary scenes of Krishna and the gopis when he was playing in the background, in my house and stuff.
Well, it's interesting you mention that because about the connection with Krishna, because from the very first time I heard Hariji play, and then he actually offered to teach me flute because he heard me playing one day, and he commented, "Hey, why don't you try bamboo flute?" So he offered to be my teacher, and then once I got to know him, and I would sit in his all-night concerts somewhere in Mumbai or other places, and then at his home, I definitely felt he was channeling that higher force, which I would call Krishna. That there would be this divine spirit that would show up through his flute, and it would just everyone would rise up. Sometimes he'd be playing an early morning raga at 3, 4 in the morning, and everyone's asleep, and all of a sudden, boom! The whole crowd feels this joy, this ecstasy, this delight. And this is the spirit of Krishna coming in through his flute.
You were trained in Western music ever since you were 7,
Hmm.
in piano
Yes.
specifically, and then you have mastered Rudra Veena, which is one of the hardest instrument to play. I don't know many people even today in India who are left who play that instrument, or even the Sarangi. And how do you master them so fast? Like master or play, whichever way you want to.
Well, I would definitely say play. Would not call myself a master of the Rudra Veena. It is a masterful instrument in that it teaches you music. Playing the Veena has given me a much deeper relationship with music. Its vibration is primarily overtones, and my teacher of the Rudra Veena, which was a wonderful man named Hindraj Divkar in Pune. First, I learned from his father Indian vocal music, and then Rudra Veena from him. And he always related to it as the sound of Shiva, and that there's a particular vibration that is released in the Rudra Veena, which takes you deep into your inner being. And that's how I relate to it. It's not, I'm not a master of the instrument, but the instrument definitely takes me into my depths inside when I play it. So it's a teacher to me. That instrument is a teacher to me. The Sarangi, the Sarangi was a kind of quest that I had earlier in my life, in my 20s, which I was practically obsessed with the sound. The sound of the Sarangi is like the yearning of the soul for God. I first heard it when I was walking in the nighttime in India, and I must have been about 23. And that sound reverberated in my soul and called out to me until I could finally obtain an instrument and study it. I would play it until my fingers would bleed, and it was really kind of an ordeal learning that instrument. And I would not say that I'm a master of it, but I would say that it gave me a great deal of seasoning to my musical journey. It gave me another depth, a depth of melancholy, a depth of longing for the divine that that sound evokes.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarangi has that quality. It has a melancholy, and it's usually the way I associate it in the music, the olden music that I've heard is it's when two lovers are parting and the Sarangi is always played. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful instrument,
Yes.
but yes, it's a little sad. Your
Yeah.
musical
Yeah.
music, is it a result of rigor or is it something natural or both for you? But mostly, like, which percentage would you give? Natural, 60%, rigor more?
Well, I think that's it's been a result of a lot of discipline on my part, especially since I started studying Indian. Well, no, actually, when I was studying piano, I used to play 14 hours a day. And when I was studying piano and composition, I was like a monk with that instrument. And then again, that happened for me again when I began studying the bamboo flute, the bansuri. I would get up at 4 in the morning and practice pre-dawn ragas, and then again all throughout the day. And it became so there was a great deal of discipline. But I have a rebellious nature, so even I rebel against my own discipline. And after a time, I perhaps that's why I play different instruments, because if I become obsessed with learning one certain instrument, I need a break from that. I need to have fun. I need to enjoy my life. And so another instrument is like picking up a toy. After you try to master one or you devote yourself to one, the others become like playthings. And so
Mm,
I think that's been part of my multi-instrumentalism. It's not that I master other instruments. I devote myself to the bamboo flute, but they become fun for me, another way of expressing myself without all that burden of the discipline.
mm. So the intensity kind of reduces a little bit for you.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. You do have an intense nature, generally, from whatever I read in the book, um, probably in most things that you have done in life. So, how do you balance that in your life? Not just your music, but other things too. How do you balance it? Keep it playful.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's probably a lifelong quest for me because, yeah, as you say, my life has been kind of surprisingly intense for me. I think if I can explain it in these terms, I feel like I've had to complete the streams of several lives in one life, like different things that were coming from the past, like being a sculptor or being a musician or being a painter. All these things were calling upon me to fulfill them. And
Mm,
and so I it's not that I've had a simple life. I've had a very kind of strange life. You can see it in the book. Events happen to me which are kind of shocking spiritual lessons which come almost out of nowhere but reflect some deep need on the part of my soul to observe something inside myself. And that's happened quite a lot, which I'm grateful for, but It's been kind of intense.
Like even when you go and meet Osho, I find like you know you're in the right place, you feel the energy, but the surrender doesn't happen, right?
Definitely, I had my relations with Osho has been many multidimensional, almost like a father son, almost like definitely master disciple, and definitely I rebelled against him in the quite quite much in the beginning because it demanded a great the devotion, surrender, surrender of your time, surrender of your ego goals. It demanded everything,
Mm.
and I definitely rebelled against that. I lived many years in the commune, but I lived as an outsider in the commune. I never have been a person that's like, oh yeah, the tribe, the community, the village, the people. I've always been an individual, and that's just my nature. But Osho used that. He kind of played with that with me. He never forced me to be against my nature. He used my nature to take me to the extreme of it until I see that okay, that's not what I need to do anymore. Yeah, it's like it became ridiculously painful to continue on that course. And, that's how the master works sometimes. Yeah.
You say you were a hard, tough one to crack. Um,
Yeah, I was a tough nut. I was, yeah.
but you
I
know,
think it's why he put me breaking rocks. I think that's why I think he was laughing at that. Yeah.
but I have a feeling that it was you say you're a tough one, but I feel like there's a extreme sensitivity and softness which you were protecting by
Yes.
constant use of hands and mind in something, because
Hmm.
then you don't have to be associated with things.
Yes, there is a protection in focusing so extremely in physical work. I mean, one can pour oneself into that and not have be bothered by the distractions of many things, relationships, power struggles, all those different distractions that happen in the life. I could kind of pour myself into my physical work or physical creativity, and that was a release for me and a way a form of protection, but also a form in that protection, your protections are slowly stripped off of you. It works both ways, yeah.
Mm.
Because in the process of perfecting an art, you definitely encounter your ego barriers and your limitations and lack of patience. And for me, that was the hardest thing I ever had to face. Um, that I really wanted to see results. I wanted to see progress. I wanted to see completion. I wanted to see recognition for what I did. And sometimes none of those things happen. And you just break yourself on those rocks. Yeah. It's like waves crashing on the shore. Yeah.
You were also very, you say, of course, that you want recognition now, but when I'm reading through the book, there's a very quiet quality to you. You're not going after recognition, you're doing your work and you're saying, hey, did you see it? You know, now I'm stepping back. You're doing work in Osho's, like being his carpenter, his handyman when he's away, not being in his way, com- almost hiding from him. And but you want him
Yeah,
to
it
know.
was.
it's
You
it's a
got it
very
very clearly.
it's a very
Yeah.
childlike, endearing quality.
Yeah, yeah, that's a funny duality that was there in my life with Osho, where I was often in the position of being very close to him and around him in his house, in his room, in his life, living with him, and yet not being seen by him, like not being physically seen, being like the mouse in the house, you know. But the things that I would do were obviously presented to him and part of his life and part of his, lifestyle. So he was constantly seeing the effects of my actions and being aware of my presence. So it was kind of like I wanted to avoid getting hit by him, but I wanted to get appreciated by him. So that
Oh, so
constant that ego play was constantly there in me. Yeah. Yeah,
so you were
it
like,
was a
oh,
funny
I'm just
game.
putting it out, and if he likes, then it's
Yeah.
me. If he doesn't like, he doesn't know who it is.
Yeah, yeah. Something like that. But he knew everything. Yeah, he knew everything. And after a while I realized that there's no way to hide from him. There's no way to protect yourself. He's going to get in there and penetrate and destroy your ego no matter what you want. But he did it in such a loving way. In such a I could even feel him when he was talking about me. I'd be sitting like in the second row or something, and he would out of the blue start talking about something I did without using my name, but I knew he's talking about me. So it was like I was squirming in my seat. Oh my God. And then he would start giving me love. He would like giving me appreciation. He would like saying, a Buddha doesn't have to just sit in meditation. A Buddha can play the flute. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. and then and that would make me even more scared when he would love me. It was like, oh my God, maybe he's talking about me. Oh no. and then I could feel him kind of feeling how I was taking it. If
Mm.
I was letting it in, or if I was defending myself, or if I was freaking out. And he was very gently giving me love that I could let in, but not too much. It was amazing to feel his sensitivity and his loving way of dismantling my ego, either through criticism or through love. It was amazing to feel that from him.
In many ways, I have felt Osho as a Zen master, but not in the traditional sense that, like heard so many stories from the Japanese Zen master. They're like throwing their disciples off, or they're like, you know, hitting with sticks. And Osho is doing it in such a, because probably he knew people like in today's world wouldn't take it and they would just run away or something.
Yeah, they would sue. They would sue
Yeah.
him or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, but you got a lot of Zen sticks. I read in your book, and there were like a lot of Zen sticks, and it's
yeah, a lot
amazing
of
that you
steady
stood there,
succession. Yeah, yeah,
and you stood there and you took it. It's you didn't, because I can feel your turmoil, like when you're not really a group person and you don't want to be in that whole commune-like situation, which I completely get it. Um, and then just because you, and then also you're getting Zen sticks, but you still hold on, you still stick to that whole thing. What was it?
I can't tell you. I knew from the very beginning that he was it. Yeah, that it's like my early life, I'd been searching for something, and it was like groping in the dark and doing lots of stupid things and not knowing what I was doing, but I was looking for a master without knowing what a master was. And then once I came in contact with Osho, something in me just knew I know this guy and I know this is it. And there was no doubt in me, but I still fought it for like 3, 4 years before I started getting really close to him, and he really started letting me come close to him. And once that happened, the energetic the energetic relationship between us, what I could feel he was giving me and what I felt in his presence was so much more important than my resistance or anything. I mean, what did I have to protect? What did I have to hang on to? My shells, my defensiveness, my you know whole Southern California way of being. Who cares? This guy has the real thing. He has the connection. He's like the doorway to the divine, and you don't argue with that. The divine is the divine. Once you feel that, once you know that, once you know that it exists, then all the kind of brouhaha that stands in the way of that just melts away. And so there came a point where there was no more. I'm not going to say no to this. Whatever he asks of me, I'm here to do it. And if he's bringing me through a certain experience, then that's the experience I have to go through. And there was no more kind of resistance on my part. And exactly then, it started to get more light, more fun, more joyful, more a kind of play between us, where it's only in joy that you can really let in the master's energy. You can't do it by fighting and agony. That's all your thing, your ego, your resistance, which causes all that pain. And once you let go of that, then it starts to become a beautiful dance between you and him, you or her or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a story Osho had once said in the lecture. Matsui was a Zen master, and Yakusun was
Mm-hmm.
his.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, just look in the eyes. The eyes met, and that's it. That's Zen. That is what Zen is basically. There is no, it's like two candles. One is burning, the other is not, but they just come together and both start, they're lit. That
Mm.
almost
That's it.
never happened, right? In the like, it wasn't that easy ever for any of the disciples. Like he Osho kept on hammering and chiseling, and people kept on kind of. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think that he said it once. I remember when I was a fairly new sannyasin, he was speaking in the lecture series, The Perfect Master. And he said, you keep looking for a perfect master, but are you the perfect disciple? And then he comically used my letter to him as an example of how an idiot can come to a master and tell him his problems when, and that just shows the low level of the spiritual seeker now. I mean, just look what we have. We have all these mini gurus on internet, and people, take one course or two courses, and they think that they can give spiritual teachings, and it's like it's all become so compromised and commercialized, and that's the situation of humanity right now. The real meeting, the real, that real energy transmission that you mentioned between the master and disciple is so hard to find now because distraction is like, how can people keep their attention on something for more than 10 seconds with Instagram, constantly scrolling, and the kids grow up with these little boxes in their hands.
Mhm.
It's getting more and more difficult to maintain attention. And what is meditation? You have to have the capacity to observe your mind observing nothing. You have to observe the gaps between the thoughts without distracting yourself, going somewhere else, going to another thought, going to a memory, going to an emotion. You have to stay there and you have to just observe.
I agree with you. I tried this 2-day thing that I said I'm not going to touch my social media accounts and I won't scroll mindlessly, just, because I have an
Mm-hmm.
excuse that I have this podcast and I have to, and it almost got me so anxious. I was like, oh, I have to go see, I have to check, something's happening, and nothing was happening.
Yeah,
Almost
yeah,
never anything, but in my
yes, I
mind.
totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, yeah, it's just the looking for that little dopamine hit,
Mm,
and I do the same thing. Sometimes it's like, oh, especially when I want to go into zombie mode and I'm tired and I don't want to think about anything.
mhm,
Then I just,
mhm,
oh God, this is
mhm.
garbage. This is garbage. This is all garbage. But to put the phone down and just leave it, that's not so easy now. It's so
Mhm.
entertaining.
Yeah.
It's so
And life is
constantly
boring.
something new.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel like life is so boring. Like, this is at least giving me something. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I get it. And even though during that time there was no social media, but we had all kind of political activism and the world needs to change. And We are going to have a new world, and those kind of ideas probably which occupied the mind. So,
And I think that's what a lot of the push for psychedelics in like in my young times, 1969, 1970, the whole psychedelic movement. This was boredom. I mean, people were bored with the mind that the little boxes that we'd grown up with. Those boxes were in our mind; they weren't in our hand. That this is the only thing available. You know, left, right, up, down, yes, no, good, bad. That whole jail that our minds were put into as little children becomes very boring. And that's why people want to escape. Either it's through drugs or it's through sex or it's through, you know, scrolling endlessly on social media. It's all boredom. But boredom is the doorway. Boredom is the doorway to go past the mind. And that was a hard thing for me in the discipline of being a disciple of Osho was that he would force you lovingly, carefully, intelligently, he would force you to face your boredom.
mm,
And that is a arduous task, but that is the doorway to entering the inner being.
mm. Yeah, and amazing tools you guys had, the ranch, to build that ranch. It's a tool to get away from that anxiety and boredom and then focus that
Hmm.
energy. Um,
Yes.
yes. I mean, if I see it in today's context, I would love to have a place like that where I could just go, maybe with my kids and other kids that I see like bored to death. They don't know what they're doing in the school, or but there's
Hmm.
some focused way of putting that energy, and there's some liveliness then on the faces. Otherwise, it's all like really dead, honestly. But
Yeah. Yeah, the ranch was a very particularly amazing experience for me. That was the best university I could have ever been in. And I think now I look at it like the ranch was a paramita, a bridge from this world to the inner world. It's like gave us meaning, it gave us a focus of our energy, it lifted us out of our laziness and our mental laziness, which
Mhm.
which my whole generation was in that, like just this kind of hedonistic, yeah, just look for a new partner every day and don't do anything very difficult, just go with the flow, man, and that's just a really limiting way to live. And
Mm,
the ranch forced us to focus, to work, to work together, to work with people that you can't stand, but you have to live and work with them 12, 14 hours a day, which really scrapes the corners off your ego. So it was like a constant challenge for me and for everybody that was extremely fun and extremely challenging at the same time. And
yeah.
it taught me that it's better to have a challenge than to just sit in boredom. That a challenge is much more dynamic. A challenge is much more, makes you feel much more alive. And that was a great gift of the ranch, I think, for me.
Mm. I was reading the last few chapters in your book, Reflections, and I've always had this question, and whoever I've spoken to, I've tried to come up with, and everybody has a very insightful, um, you know, hindsight of why the ranch happened and how and what were their learnings. But I always question this. There were a bunch of 20, 30, whatever people controlling the whole thing. And I find there were so many intelligent people who were working there who could see right through, as you mentioned in your book, you could see right through things weren't right, people weren't doing what they're supposed to do. And yet everybody kind of just kept quiet, their head down, and just went along with it. When the whole teaching of Osho and even Pune ashram was you take your individual responsibility, you do what you feel. If it feels wrong, then accept that and just go against it and have the faith to stand up. But I almost never found anybody doing that. And when I read your chapter, kind of made sense that everybody thought probably that Osho will take care of all that and we don't have to do anything. So, Is that what I'm reading it right? My interpretation is right? Like, is that why nobody almost?
I would partly that was one of the aspects is that I can only speak for myself, okay, but there was a few forces at play. One of them was if you rebelled, you were down the road. You couldn't stay there. That was very clear. Anybody who openly objected to what was happening hit the road. There was no way to stay there. So that was equivalent to death. It was like you died, you would not be able to be with Osho, you would not be able to be in the commune, you would not be able to be with all your friends. And so, it was like rebelling against Stalin in Russia. Sheila was like Stalin. She was very Stalinist, actually. The way that she organized the ranch was very Stalinist, in that absolute authoritarian control, and if you rebelled, or you would be, burning bags of used toilet paper in the recycling dump, or you would have to leave. I mean, you were not treated well if you rebelled. So pretty early on, you learned to temper your outbursts of honest rebellion and speak to the people that you knew you could trust, and just keep alert and keep don't get your head cut off meanwhile, while you stay and do what you can. And for my part, there was a certain point where I realized, whoa, this is going in a really weird direction. So I am not with the authorities. I am going to protect Osho. And that was why I was staying there. And I knew that Sheila was headed straight off a cliff with the way she was managing things. So I didn't want to abandon the whole thing and just leave because I thought I could have an easier life somewhere. I wanted to stick around until Sheila and her people were gone and Osho was safely out of the country. That was why I stayed. And I don't know about other people, but it was difficult to find, even in our own houses, we knew that the houses were bugged and that our conversations were being monitored. And, once that became obvious, the atmosphere became very paranoid and very limiting. And you just had to stay with your own thoughts and your own feelings. And it was like being in Stalinist Russia, exactly like that. So it was a complex situation.
Yeah, I find it almost a smaller prototype of what goes on in the regular world on
Mm.
a very bigger scale. Yeah, it's there are too many forces to fight with. Like today, if I decide I don't like something,
Hmm.
I'm too small to fight with those big. But in the ranch, wasn't it easier? Like maybe 50 people just stand up and they just get these 20 people down and they say, hey, this is wrong and this is not how we're going to do things.
Well, it was a network. I mean, the ranch was a pyramid. So there was 20 people at the top of the pyramid, but under those 20 people, there was 200 people who wanted to be part of the 20 people. Under those
Mm,
200, there was 1,000 that wanted to be, comfortable. It's like you didn't know on what level you could
mm,
rebel and survive. So
mm,
you kept it among your close circle of friends. You shared
mm,
information. You shared jokes about it. But to openly rebel, you would have to leave, and that would end the whole thing for you. So
mm.
I talk about all this in the book. I mean, I talk about
Yeah.
all those
No,
contradictions. Yeah.
your book is very comprehensive and you're very vocal. Why, I think one of the few ones who has so vocally written so honestly. What was this need in you to be so honest in your book about things which could be controversial or?
Well, funny enough, I spent a long time writing that book because it took a long time to remember everything. I was going on with my life, playing concerts all over Europe and Japan and South America, etc. And so I would write a chapter at a time, or when I'd have some time in a hotel room. And then just as I was finishing the book, there came out this Netflix documentary, and that documentary was so ridiculously biased. It really it was like presenting the life of Jesus through the eyes of Judas. I mean, they focused on Sheila, they focused on sex, drugs, and politics, which none of us were doing. That was all an image that was created around the commune, which was not true, no longer true, or never was true. Some parts of it were true, but for the great mass of us, it was not. And that was so. I wanted to set the record straight. I say, hey, this documentary that everyone's watching on Netflix doesn't have much to do with reality. And the reality that I experienced, I don't know about other people, but my reality was this. So if you want to read another view, here it is. And I
Mm.
wanted to be honest about it because the only thing I can stand behind is what I've experienced. I can't say what somebody else's experience was. So that was the impetus behind it, that this is going to stand. Osho made a mark in the consciousness of humanity, for better or worse, whether you love him or hate him, and that mark is going to be there for a very long time. So if you want to find out what happened to somebody who was actually there, here you
Mm.
can.
Yeah, and the front rows, right? So, and you had a distinct advantage because you used to work around him, so you knew what
Mm-hmm.
was going in the ranch and also around the clique or whatever the circle you call it. So you're not really part of
Mm-hmm.
that power clique, but you could see them very closely. So
Yeah,
hmm,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
you're like this little mouse, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah. That relationship got kind of comical after a while, where I would be, I think I talk about one experience in the book where I was guarding outside Osho's room when he would come back from the discourse, and he was talking to the driver about something that I was doing when he was coming in the house. So I'm like in the bushes listening to him talking about me, and it was like, oh my God, this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I read that. I read that he was talking about something you made. I think in his room you made a bedside
Yeah,
table. Um,
yeah, so, yeah, yeah. It was really sort of ridiculously comical after a while. My relation.
and like I was wondering, like somebody would just pop out and say, "Hey, you're talking about me," but you just
Yeah,
decided.
yeah, 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 yeah. I just stayed there in my, kind of. This is wild. What's going on? How much weird? How much more strange is this going to get? I don't know.
Hmm. There were UFO sightings on the ranch. Nobody talk. Almost, I've never heard anyone say it openly. But I'm so glad you wrote because there were a lot of people like me who used to wonder. And I'll tell you why I used to wonder because I was raised in a Jain family. So you
Hmm.
usually, you have these tirthankaras, and when they are enlightened, everybody comes down to listen to their discourses, and there are all these spaceships and these gods, and there are all these depictions. And I used to wonder, like, how come in
Hmm.
Osho's discourses nobody came, or because I know there were
They
animals.
did.
Yeah, yeah. and,
They did. Yeah.
and then when I read your book, I was like, oh, okay, they were there.
They were there. They were definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Osho never wanted us to talk about that stuff. He didn't want us, or Sheila. I don't know if it was Osho or Sheila, but it was definitely looked down upon to talk about UFOs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm.
But they were there. Yeah, they were. I know I saw, I wrote about it in the book, and other people I know saw, and I know other people who saw them walking around. So there were other beings who came to drink that energy that was happening there around Osho.
Mm.
And the animals responded too, just like that story of Ramana Maharshi with the cow and stuff. I mean, I saw the peacocks acting to Osho like same kind of thing. They were really getting darshan from him, and they would stay in life-threatening situations in order to be near him. So all that stuff was happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting for me. So this UFO that you clearly saw and you remember, and you
Hmm.
said, how big was that?
It was at least as big as an oil tanker, and it was just over my head. It was like maybe 100 meters up, and it was like at least 300-400 meters long, and it was like Independence Day, that movie, like the thing shows up and it's like, it was like that. Yeah. and, and me and my girlfriend were looking at it like, what is going on? And then it goes away, and we say to each other, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this. Yeah. But the taxi driver comes up and she looks at us like, did you see that thing in the sky? Yeah, we saw that thing in the sky. And then we go into the town, and the policeman is, did you see that thing? Yeah, we saw that thing in the sky. And it was like that. It was like,
Mm.
it was there, no doubt. And I remember it, and I didn't feel scared of it, but I felt in awe of it. It was higher intelligence. So, whatever it was, your guess is as good as mine. But
Yeah.
after that, my relationship with extraterrestrial UFO information really changed. Yeah, I was no longer kind of disbeliever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. What a magical world we actually inhabit, but we just don't like, we're trained not to see or believe these things, so that's I think like
Yeah,
just keeping it
interesting.
more open, because I've lived in both
Hmm.
countries, raised in India, and then I'm living here in US for last so many years. And one is like complete believe everything, and the other is like don't believe anything. So
Hmm. Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, that I understand. One has to be pick and choose. You have to listen to
mhm,
your heart. I think not just
mhm,
the head, but you have to listen to the intelligence of the heart, which something resonates. It's like a note. It's like a musical note. It resonates, or it goes bang, and then you know that that's not true. So that's what I listen to.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing it, because I think it just keeps a little crack, a little, in the door or the window where people know that these things are possible. It can happen. It's for you to trust or not, but um,
Well,
keep.
interestingly enough, after I wrote the book, the people started writing to me, giving me information which I hadn't had when I wrote the book, because I was only going on what I experienced. And some of the information that came was other people who had extraterrestrial experience at the ranch and things that they had seen, which was even far more than what I had seen. They'd actually seen entities walking around and being nearby Osho's house and things that I wouldn't have believed that stuff, but now I neither believe nor disbelieve. I just say, okay, I'll let that in and I'll see how it goes inside me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming to a sensitive chapter in your life, you had a very delicate affair with Nirvana, who was Osho's girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
and also
Mm-hmm.
anchor to this world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you, if you want to talk in your own words, and then I can ask you how it's your feelings about it.
Well, she was a very important person in my life. From the first moment I met her, I felt the impact of her being. That she was a very different sort of person, different, very crystallized energy. I can only call it that. Um, and I was around her for at least a year, I think, working in the house, passing each other day by day, and there was nothing. She was out of my league. I never dreamed that we would get together or something. But then something started to vibrate between us, and I was pretty afraid of her. I was, because I felt that, my God, she's with Osho, and there's no way that I could even dream of being with this woman. She's way past me. But slowly, after about 2 3 years, that feeling started to change, and after Osho went to left the ranch and went on the so-called world tour, and then a year went by, and then finally he came back to India, and then I came back to India right after that, and soon after she came back to India, and so we met each other again, and this time it was different. This time I did not feel inferior. I did not feel afraid of her. I felt a kind of I was happy to see her, and I could feel that our hearts were kind of starting to talk to each other. And slowly it grew, and we eventually got together. Surprisingly, I think that she had initiated that, and we had a beautiful love affair for some time. And she invited me to come live with her with Osho, and and that was an incredible experience in my life to live so close to her and him. I mean, it was
Yeah.
ridiculous to think that this is my master and he's sleeping, you know, 5 meters away, and I can hear him talking from his bed in the night, and it's like I could never dream of having some sort of relation like that with Osho. But how he treated me was amazing. He didn't never exhibited anything like jealousy. He would treated me like a father with a son, a loving father with a son. And he, it's obviously I was there because he was open to me living in the house with him. Nothing was, hidden from him or out of his control. And he had me constantly under his supervision all day long with the things I was doing. I was doing everything for him. And the relationship just got closer and closer and closer. And that was an amazing experience to me because I experienced Osho not just as my distant master on the podium speaking discourses, but he was a human being. He was a man. He was a man who loved a woman. He was a man who loved a woman that I also loved. And it was like, my God, that means that his enlightenment is possible for anyone because he's a human being. He's not a virgin birth. He's not like, Buddha who came out talking from the very first moment. No, he's a human being with human needs and desires and everything. And that changed my whole relationship with Osho. It's like he really is what he said. He said always, I'm just an ordinary man, and what's happening to me can happen to you.
Hmm.
And he lived it, and he did that. I think that's a real miracle. I think that's more than any virgin birth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. The- but when you start seeing your master as a human being, does that also make your sadhana, as you call, or your effort you put in a little bit? It could go intense, become more intense, or it could become, I don't have to work as hard. Or like if you start seeing someone too much as a human, you might not have that
Yes,
respect. Or
I think you could lose respect if you let your
yeah,
ego take over that understanding. You could say, "Well, I'm just as good as him,"
yeah,
Yeah. But that was just bullshit in the situation. I mean, I knew it.
mm,
I knew being around his energy that he's a far, far, far superior being, and his energy was huge. Osho's energy was just
mm,
huge, and there's no question. I never felt equal in any way to him. I always felt that he was the fount, and I was the little cup that was trying to receive the grace from the fountain.
yeah. Yeah, I there's a Hindi discourse that Osho has, and I was once listening to it when I was driving my car, and he is talking about how the lineages, when they are about extinguished, like they don't find the disciples and they cannot transmit the knowledge or whatever, um, and then someone, like, he didn't say it was him, but he said, and then again the source happens, and then there are more, all the streams start flowing through that source. And a lot of times I felt like
Mhm.
Osho is that source, where a lot of things actually had started dying, or people didn't know about so many other, like tantra, what we know. I know because I've listened to Osho, Hasidism, Sufi, everything that he talks about. It's kind of, he's bringing it back, reviving it in
Mm.
certain, and I don't know how much we understand, but it's a very big phenomena than we probably realize. Um, or rather,
I
I
totally
realize.
agree.
You could realize it, but yeah, for me,
Yeah, I totally agree. I always felt that too. Whenever he talked about something, he embodied that thing.
yeah.
And he'd be talking about Sufi, and then the next month he'd be talking about Tantra. And it's like, and he was those things when he talked about them. You felt it. Oh my God, this is really it. You felt it, that energy entering into your pores, into your cells, into your bones. But I think he summed it up in one discourse he gave. I don't remember in what series that was, but he was talking about that he's every 25 centuries, the wheel of Dharma slows to a stop. Like after Buddha, the wheel of Dharma slowly started um, becoming more and more halted, and more obstacles, and that after 25 centuries there comes another Buddha to turn the wheel of Dharma. And he says that is my work. That's what he came for, is to restart that wheel of Dharma, and that is all of our work too, that we are part of that great
Hmm.
work. And I
Yeah,
totally identify with that. Yeah.
yeah. Because someone like me, I was born in Pune, but I never met him in person. And then I'm here eight, seven seas away, 30 years apart. He's left his body, and I feel his presence, and I imbibe
Hmm.
what it's not like a simple phenomena, right? Someone,
Mm.
yeah, so definitely a lot of mysterious things going on with him is all I can say. um
Yes. Yes. I think that the relationship to which you mentioned, someone who hasn't been with him, like one thing I didn't want to have happen is that with my book is that people would feel that, oh, those people were with Osho and now that will never be again, and that's chapter's over. That's not what's happening. It's like I know many people who have never been with Osho in the body, but they have a more relationship energetically with Osho than many people who were with him in the body. Many people who were with him were relating to him as a body. They were relating to him as a person. And once that body disappeared, it broke their
mm,
connection. They,
mm,
they couldn't make the bridge. Many people left after Osho left the body. But the people who never were with him in a body and resonate with him through their heart, through their soul, have a relationship which has no time, has no space. It has nothing to do with the past. It's like
mm.
not going to change because of the past. It's here and now. And that's a very beautiful and pure connection, and no less than someone who was with him in the body.
um about Nirvana, she was such a evolved
Mm-hmm.
being, and you can see it even in the pictures. And being with Osho, it's not like a light thing. Of course she has to have a very
Mm-hmm.
crystallized, evolved energy, and yet she couldn't come out of the things that we all of us struggle, like depression, anxiety, and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very humane, that you could be with a master your whole life, and yet the human frailties are so hard to surpass, and you could miss so much even being in the presence. And maybe she was so close to Osho, that was one of the reason, I don't know. But how do you see this, and how does your relationship, when you view her death in the hindsight, how does that change your feelings, and how does that?
It's very complicated, and I don't think I know every aspect of the situation, but she had what she used to mention it as genetic depression, which means she had bouts of depression which happened periodically, having to do with hormonal changes. And I think there were two things that really affected that very much and made it much worse for her. One was that when Osho had been poisoned by when he was in jail by the United States government, he was poisoned in those 12 days where he disappeared. He was taken from jail to jail and nobody knew where he was. And as he started to get very sick, and I was living with him at that time, and there was tests done with in a laboratory in London where it was found that he is what probably, most likely had been given thallium, a heavy metal
Mm.
which poisons the body and then leaves the body, so it doesn't leave traces. So once that was found out, and he was getting sick day by day, Nirvana told me one day, he's never going to be well again. And she, from that moment on, her personality started changing. And
Mm.
what I felt was that she was his anchor in the world. She was like, had that relationship with him from a past life where she
Mm.
was the one who was keeping him in the body, where
Mhm.
he could stay in the world. Because Osho was already done with being a
Yeah.
human being. I mean, he didn't need this world anymore. You know, he'd lived all the experiences, and he was already in the higher planes on in a certain way. And
Must have been torture for him actually to be here.
yes, exactly it was just a pain in the neck, I think.
Mm.
And she was his anchor in the body. And then once it was clear that he was not staying and that her task in this life of maintaining him alive and well was failing, not because of her, but it was failing and she couldn't do anything about it. I think she lost her will to live. I think she really lost that thing that had been motivating her for 20 more years, and even
Mm.
from another lifetime, was no longer there. And she something broke in her, something broke
Mm.
in her will to live. And then after our relationship ended and she the next person she was with, I don't think that relationship was good for her. I say from my distance, no judgment. I mean, relationships can be good or bad, and I don't think this relationship was helping her. And
Mm.
that she became more distant from Osho. She became more isolated, and she became more depressed. And at a
Yeah.
certain point, her life, she ended her life, and so I think there was a lot of factors happening, all of which I don't know. But when we were together, what I saw was that she had lost her will to live because Osho was, in fact, dying.
Mm. No, my feeling, like how I feel from my heart, is basically if, of course, when she knows that Osho is dying, her will is gone. But it's like, the Anando Buddha relationship. When Buddha was
Mm-hmm.
leaving the body, Ananda was completely distraught. But just
Yeah.
because he held on, and once Buddha was gone, Ananda became enlightened. And he was the closest person every day, sleeping in the same room as Buddha. um, and
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of the block. And probably, I don't know, if she would have just lived long enough, she would have probably figured that out, and the completion would have been. That's my feeling. But yeah, we can always speculate and whatever. But I just feel sorry sometimes, like she gave it all, and
She gave it all, but I think there's something. I can't speak for her, okay, because she was a
yeah.
higher being than me. I can
Yeah.
honestly say she was a higher being, but I think there's a danger in being so close to the master of spiritual
Hmm.
bypassing that you can, by devoting yourself completely and wholly to this other being, you can avoid some of your shadow.
Hmm.
And it's not a good idea because you
Yeah.
you cannot avoid your shadow forever. You have to process, you have to work on yourself, you have to deal with who you really are deep inside. Yeah,
Yeah.
not just offer it all to the feet of God, but you have to actually look at yourself while you do that and work on yourself. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah, could be. What is playfulness for you?
Hmm. I think playfulness is when you, however you choose to live, whether you live very disciplined or very structured, to reach a certain point where you realize, well, that's all okay, but don't take it too seriously and just enjoy, do something different, be yourself, be a playful child again. It's like, particularly with creativity, with art, it's like you can go and go and go and go in your discipline, in your exactness, in your creating extreme structures of beauty or whatever. But there's a certain point where you have to just let go of all of it and just let the child in you play in the mud,
Yeah.
and create from that place.
There's a chapter in your book you talk about the intent. Basically, you swim against the current or you just go with
Mm-hmm.
the. And something very interesting in that you say that every small desire can merge into that big universal desire, because desires don't go away, they always stick and they're always there, but the small desires can become merged into the big one, whatever is the universe's desire, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
How do you distinguish what is the universe's desire versus it could be your mind just playing tricks? Oh, this is the big version of, I want to be the king of the world, this is the universe telling me that.
That's a really good question. I think you have to trust how it feels. I think if you are really going with the intent of the universe, that is, you're actually going with your intent, your deep soul's intent, your soul's purpose. When you do that, you feel happier. You feel, and I don't mean the happiness of like ego satisfaction, but I mean joy deep in your being. It's a kind of quiet, nameless feeling of joy. And that is the sign that you're on the right track. And if you keep getting more and more miserable and more tense and more anxious, that's a sign that you're on the wrong track, that you're heading in a direction that isn't for you. So I think you can be working very hard and sweating profusely and trying to do something which is that's not coming from your ego. It's coming from you're actually on the right course because it's giving you joy to do this thing, even though it's hard, even though it's a challenge. But there's other things which, even if you're like just seeking pleasure or just taking drugs all the time, or that, you are not becoming a happier person, you are feeling less and less joy in your heart, that's a sign you're on the wrong track. It's
Mm.
not working. You're going in a wrong direction and it's dragging you off your course. And I think you have to listen to that feeling in your heart to know if you are going with the tide or against it.
Mm. Perfect, actually. That's a good pointer to keep in mind how much joy and bliss you feel. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who are very famous and but they're miserable. So yeah. Do you still
Yes.
believe you have something of Milarepa's fate in you because you keep
uh, yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. Hmm. I'm definitely still working off karmas. Yeah, that I'm definitely find myself in situations where, oh my God, what did I do in a past life where I still have to do this? Yeah, uh, yeah. It's not all roses, roses. That's for sure.
I'm
So,
with you right there. But I mean Milarepa did it. Why not, right?
yeah, he did it. That's right. I think he was definitely on his last lifetime. I don't know if I am. Yeah. So I'll just keep going, and I have no
Maybe
idea
just
how
one
long
more
or
and
short
then
the
that's
road is. Yeah,
it.
maybe one more.
Just
Yeah.
one more.
Yeah.
We call it a day.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. Was that enough? Yeah. Was that enough? Yeah, this time.
I will just repeat the question and then you
Sure,
can.
sure. That'd be great. Great, great. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
you relate through feelings more than behavior, and
mhm.
then it's normal for people to expect you to meet you in the similar same space. And if that doesn't happen, um, how do you react? Does it make you go colder? The reason I'm asking this is I've seen people who go very dark with this and um, become destructive a little bit.
No, I don't. I don't become destructive. I try harder, and then when that doesn't work, then after a long time, I give up. So it's that's my pattern. I wouldn't say it's either better or worse, but I if if there isn't communication, isn't if there isn't a circle of connection happening, then I try and I think, oh, it must be me, or there must be something, I'm not giving the right thing, or I try, and then until I get hurt, until I feel that this is not working, that I'm being rejected, and then distance happens, and then the relationship ends if it doesn't change.
The
Yeah.
distraction is itself. Sometimes people just harm themselves too. It's not the outside. So, like
No,
you.
I don't do that. No, I just try harder. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Devakant, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for,
Yeah, for me too.
yeah. So, we're going to end the show, and maybe I'll meet you again somewhere, sometime.
Okay, thank you very much, Radha. It was really a pleasure, and your questions, I can really relate to the level that they're coming from. So we are straight across.